All right, so we are live. This is going to be a fairly similar stream to yesterday. Going to just let people give people some time to join this, and then I am going to have camera on, so that's cool. And then we're just gonna be sculpting this little fawn guy, continuing sculpting on him. I'll take all your questions and yeah, just having a good time. Q&A, talk about the industry, generally just enjoying some time for sculpting. So I am just gonna start doodling on this guy here, and then we'll see how far we take him. If people come in the chat, just let me know, because then I know the stream is actually working as well, which is always a nice little benefit. Also, if you are again coming from the future and you are not watching this live, feel free to just check out the other streams as well. We're doing tons of these streams these days, so yeah, just good vibes, just good sculpting and just having fun with this. So we were covering a lot of different things the last few days as well, and also the last few years as well for streaming, honestly. So yeah, just a lot of good ZBrush content here. Hey guys. So I'm going to take the face a bit further today, I think. The face is looking all right now, to be honest. I'm fairly happy with it in terms of like the main shapes, but it's starting to need almost like high frequencies soon. So what I'm doing, I'm just going over and refining the overall shapes now. Orange B by saying, I love your anatomy class and your sculpting class. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Those are currently 40% off for anyone who's interested in that. So I'm still working with symmetry for this character and probably will for quite some time. Honestly, for a lot of these characters, the way I break symmetry is not in the sculpting, but it's in texturing, because that's just a lot easier. And it's almost like if you were to have a perfectly symmetrical mannequin and you want to just break it up, you can just do some asymmetrical makeup on the character. So that's like a nice way of doing that. Sure, it's a good idea to break up the symmetry, just that does take extra time as well. So that is optional. So using the smooth brush here just to make sure the shapes are a little bit cleaner. Like we've been talking about the last few days now, really one of the best ways to improve the overall character is just to go a bit hardcore when it comes to the sculpting. Don't go like, yeah, this will kind of do. Like really just take it to a high level. This is going to make everything so much easier. I'm saying you shouldn't be clever about how to texture things, but honestly just going, I'll just sculpt this until it's done. This is not a bad way to approach it. So yeah, just come with your questions and or your comments about anything you want to. Let's just get a conversation started. Very happy to just answering your questions for a few hours now. A lot of this, when it comes to sculpting, is just straight up labor. There's no technique per se. It's just, you just have to be patient and just take as much time as it takes. How do you sculpt all the things for Horn here? One thing at a time, right? That's really a superpower that's going to differentiate yourself from your competition. Just spending time on things. It's one thing I keep drilling with my mentees as well. Like if you want to do some kind of scaly or heavy leathery kind of creature, man, you just gotta sculpt all the leathery folds and all the scales. You can of course be clever in texturing in some of these ways, but you just have to brace yourself for just a lot of manual work, and that's fine. You know, that's what we're doing this. It's fun to do. By doing this work, you're basically putting down a significant amount of foundation for the rest of your character. So texturing and look deving and retopologizing, UV mapping, all this kind of stuff becomes so much easier. I do think it's a good idea as well once in a while to take this into something like Blender or Maya and just do a bit of a render on the character just to see if you're on the right path or not. I may or may not be, so let's actually just do that. So what I'll do is I'm gonna just take the whole thing and I'm just gonna merge it and merge visible. And then we're gonna just take this whole thing, and this is about 5 mil at the moment. So I'm gonna go in here, decimate this, and then we see how low I take this. This is just to do a quick test render. We can do about 500K, that's fine. We just hit that, custom. Now this is a quick and dirty way of doing it. The production way of doing it is to retopologize, even map it, put this into your favorite software, set up a normal map displays map, and then do that. But honestly, we don't have time for that, at least at the moment. Not even like it's a time matter as well, it's also just a clever matter, because at this point we don't really have, we haven't locked down the design yet, so there's no point in really doing that. I'm just going to be using Blender because it's just a lot more interactive than Maya. For the final render, I'll most likely deal with Maya for this, just because XGen is just a lot better than the hair tools we have in Blender. But you know, personal preference there. I also really prefer the skin shading in Maya over what we have in Blender. Skin shading in Blender is still fine, but it's not as good as Blender. Right, this should be done by now. Oh, it's still reordering. Let's see here. All right, cool. There we go. Now you can barely see there's a difference, right? Of course, if you undo, you can. But there isn't really too much stuff happening in this mesh anyway. It's still very low. So I'm just going to save this out. Definitely not on my desktop, because why would I save it on my desktop? Surely not. Then we go to the Blender, and then I'm just gonna open this up like so. You can just drag this in. This is really handy, new feature in Blender. You can just drag and drop. So here we go. And then I just need to set this up. Just the scale is either correct or it's 100 times off. Okay, it's correct, because I've been setting this up. I can't remember where I set the scale up for Maya or for Blender, and the scale is gonna be by about 100 times off. So you can just set this up. The only reason I'm doing this is really to test the character. Nothing fancy, no fancy reason for this. It's purely so that we can just get a bit of a better idea of what's actually going on with the character, because ZBrush is not a great tool for evaluating, well, anything. The camera is off, everything is just kind of off about it. So at least compared to render, right? So I'm just setting this up now. So we're just doing this, and then we're just doing this. Yeah, I just got a new 1080 Super the other day, so I have a pretty beefy GPU now, which is amazing, because I haven't had one in a long time. I've had the 2070 for like 5 years, and it was fine-ish when it came out, but it's nowhere near good enough for the stuff I need now. So now I can actually just start this as a render, and see what this looks like. This to GPU. This is one of those things that's a bit weird. This is just because I'm screwing this up here. That's super bright. But by default, the sunlight is on, and it's just insanely bright. And I don't really get that. In this case, I'm sure it has to do with my HDRI as well. Double check that. Yeah, the HDRI is just nuts here. So let's just go in. Using HDRI here is fine, just to, I guess, as a starting point. I'm also just going to double check this is set to AGX. It is not. AGX just makes everything so much nicer. That was actually an issue. It had nothing to do with lighting. It was just the AGX wasn't set up. We can make another material for the background. I think it's such a good idea to do these tests very, very early on, because you generally don't know what you're doing. If not, you're working completely in the blind if not. So we are just going to do a little bit of a test here. Like, the new hair tools in Blender are fine. They have a lot of potential, but they're not there yet. So the hair tools in Maya with XGen are in theory really good. They're very powerful, but they're also kind of crappy because they're extremely buggy. They're so buggy that if you like you don't really know if you are screwing something up or if this is a software that's screwing something up. But my lord, they are crazy buggy. Just gonna find a new HDRI. Cool. Just getting something that is a bit more neutral. Okay, set the GPU. Just gotta check that this is set to the GPU in the prefs as well. Yeah, should be good. Cool. And then I'm just gonna check the samples here as well. Yeah, it seems like it stops pretty quickly. So I'm just gonna set this up. Alright, cool. We can also denoise it as well. Alright, cool. So we have something now, and then we are just going to... Actually, I think the issue here is the... we need another zero in here. Yeah, there we go. It's insane how fast denoising actually is. Well, sorry, not denoising. There's no denoising on this at the moment. How fast proper GPU rendering is. It's just mad how good it's gotten in the last few years. I really prefer cycles as well for this over Arnold for pure GPU. Like, just, man, this is fast. Just because it's just... Well, Arnold can be quite crashy when it comes to the GPU rendering. While Blender is fairly good. But I prefer the other features of Arnold more than what we have here. So I still will use Arnold for the final thing. But you know, whatever works. It's I really don't care about software wars or anything like that. It's just literally just a tool. So if it gets a job done, it gets a job done. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Why like both Morten and I have gone over to Blender to a large degree. It's not because anyone convinced us or it was better. It was just because it got better. So it's just nice and simple, really. Alright, this is looking quite nice. I'm not really seeing anything crazy massive with this. That's like that, like any crazy warning signs with this here, that it needs just to drastically change. One thing I will do, I will change the camera. I'll also just save this out. Just need to find our location to save this. Yeah, it's really cool to be able to see this in real time with proper materials and everything. Yeah, I started this off as a pretty much one-to-one version of the Fawn in Pan's Labyrinth, but I think I'm going to go a bit away from that. I think that's often how I start my characters as well. I start off with almost like a fan sculpt, or like at least heavily reference-based, but then I tend to go over to... I tend to do my own design. Like here, it looks like he has gloves as well, because I just threw some hands from base mesh, because I'm not gonna sculpt hands, because why would I? It's one of those things, it's already a solved thing. I'm way more interested in the design of this character, so I'm not gonna bother with that. Very cool. I think what I will do, I will scale his head down a little bit, so to make him... It's one of those weird things, by making somebody's head bigger, you make them look visually shorter, and by doing the opposite, you make them look taller. So I just want to make his... I think I want to just make him feel a little bit skinnier and a little bit taller. So I'm going to take his head, I'm going to scale this down. Oh, hands need to go as well. Just do this. I think the main reason why it looks like you're taller if you have a smaller head is basically that people obviously have different heights. Nobody's is the exact same height, but your head doesn't really change, right? Not that much. So it would be, you might be a little taller because you have really long legs or really long femurs or really torso or anything like that. But your head may not scale proportionally. So if you're shorter, you're probably going to be like you're gonna be maybe like 7 heads, and if you're 7 heads tall, and if you're taller, you're gonna be more like 8 heads, of course, putting a bit on the extremes here. But like that's generally how I think about height, that basically making someone's head shorter is visually, making their head smaller will visually make them look taller, which is quite a little trick. Rich is asking, do you now prefer rendering in Blender or Maya? It really depends what I'm rendering. For something simple-ish, where the scene doesn't have crazy complexity, I definitely prefer Blender because it's just much faster. But let me show you. Let's say I'm here and I want to like move things up and down. Can't even really do that. I can't really organize my scenes just because I can't even put things in arbitrary order. It's alphabetical. So if I call this like A, it's going to go to the top right. So I think it's highly frustrating to deal with scene management in Blender as well. So it's not just like pure features, right, in terms of rendering. It also has to do with just pure pipeline. Maya is fine. Like I have no love for Maya as a tool, but it's just a lot easier to work with my scenes there. But it also depends if the character has hair or not. If it's a generally metallic character, or if it's a prop or something like that, then Blender is great. But for skin and hair particularly, I definitely prefer Maya. Not even saying it's objectively better, just that is my preference. I've yet to see a lot of good renders from Blender where the hair is very good compared to Maya. Again, XGen, biggest crap ever made, but it can produce some legit really good results. You have a lot of control over it, and yeah, it's just a nice. In theory, it's a nice set of tools. Somebody's asking about what material here is. I genuinely don't know. You can try Googling like Z3, Z1, Z materials. These are some I got years back, like 14 years kind of thing. I genuinely have no idea where these come from, and I'm also a bit wary of distributing them because there might be some copyright or something on them, right? Like, so I don't want to. I can't even remember if I bought them or not, because it might be something I just found on ZBrush Central. But in general, I just want to be careful about distributing things that may or may not belong to somebody else in terms of the pure copyright. But usually this material here, the basic material, this is one I use the most. And if you don't want to use this one, the clay one, which are, I don't know where it is. It's here somewhere. This one here. This one is really nice as well. I use this a lot as well. Very nice one. Have you tried sculpting in Blender 4 or higher? Yes, I have. Still not particularly good. Still insane performance issues, undo issues, still no layers, still like a bit janky performance on, or like sculpting feel. It's not really fundamentally better than it's been in the last few years, to be honest. XGen is only for Arnold. What about hair cards in Maya Blender? XGen isn't really for Arnold. XGen is for Maya. So you can use it for all sorts of render engines. But it is a Maya specific tool. So you're not going to find XGen outside of Maya. Houdini is apparently really good for hair as well. I want to get into Houdini recently, but it's more like I'm curious about it. So because it genuinely seems like a very, very good tool. And I want like a grooming tool for it, but I'm not gonna deal with the restrictions of the free versions, which are very severe. Like he's great just for learning, but I need just more high-res renders for just like even showing off my work, and I don't feel like paying for a tool that I may or may not use. So no Houdini for me at the moment, just because it takes a long time to learn something like that. Hey, can you create a facial sculpting tutorial like Introduction to Anatomy? That's not a bad idea, actually. Just making something like full-on facial. That could be cool. You have roll on this for clay buildup. This is actually my own custom brush. Let's see. I can't remember what the roll is. Roll distance is like here. Let's see here. Was it here? There's a roll distance. Yeah, it's this one here, 4.4. 4.5 is the roll distance for this brush. But the more important thing is just a custom. It's a custom one. I'll probably share this at some point with the community. Get Houdini Indie. It's cheap. It's so cheap. It's almost criminal. Yeah, I mean, I could, but man, it's also the time commitment for it as well. And I don't want to deal with the default Arnold render engine. I know there is a new Houdini render engine. I know there is a new one they're working on, which is coming out or is already out or something. But it's, man, Arnold is just so nice for skin particularly. I definitely don't want to deal with the legacy Arnold or the legacy Houdini render engine. That seems pretty crappy. So yeah, I just like using Arnold for skin, or even like cycles. Because I'm not going to become an effects artist, right? Like, there's no way I'm going to turn into a fire or smoke kind of person. So it would be for the hair tools. And I don't really enjoy hair tools enough to, I don't really enjoy doing grooming enough to learn a whole new software. What's your take on AI? If you check out one of the episodes we have on the podcast, you can search for like Flip Normals on the podcast, on any podcast app, or just go to our YouTube channel. You can, well, I guess you are on YouTube at the moment, so you can check that out. We have a whole episode on that where we go fairly in depth into our take on that. It's way too long to be able to reiterate anything there in this stream. But yeah, we have made something there. The gist of it is kind of some good, some bad, right? It's really hard to tell. Also, AI is such a broad topic. What AI for what, really? So it's really hard to find something like properly conclusive about that, because it's AI isn't like one thing, right? Houdini is a wonderful tool for procedural skin and scale. Yeah, it looks like it. It really. It looks fantastic in so many different ways. Houdini just is like the tool. If I was starting with 3D now, I think I would have been a Houdini guy. I think I would have just gone full on Houdini. Like it's just insane how flexible and versatile it actually is. The amount of stuff you can do with it is beyond crazy. It's also like a fully mature tool as well. So it's not like a new, well, like in geometry nodes in Blender. It's still fairly immature in a lot of ways. It's cool, but it's still like a fairly new tool. Well, Houdini has been around for a very long time. Alright, let's see if there's something else we can do with this guy. I think I want to make his legs a bit longer as well. There are two ways to make his legs longer. Make his legs longer, or make his torso shorter. It's a long learning curve to go from Maya to Blender, and is it worth it? I mean, not really. It's fine. It's let me actually show you some stuff here. Speaking of, it's our summer sale now, so I want to show you actually one specific product that's really good for this. This is for, I made one specific course for this. I'm sending a link here now. This here is switching to Blender for experienced artists. This is made specifically for that. So this here is made for somebody who knows Maya or 3D in general. I come from Maya background. I guess I come from a Modo, Max, XSI, and Maya background. So I come from all the software backgrounds, and then just talking about how to use it. It's one of those that it's still fairly similar to Maya in terms of like it's 3D, right? 3D is kind of 3D, but Blender is also a weird cookie. So you do have to learn just a lot of specific things about it, and that's what we'll cover now. It's almost like the way I kind of think about it is it's like you worked in a workshop for like a garage or something for like, or a workshop for cars for like 10 years. And now you need to work in a new workshop where they do things in a slightly different way. It's still fundamentally cars you're working on, but you know, the tools are in a different spot. Maybe it's in a different country, right? They call things by slightly different names and all that kind of stuff, but it's still the same thing. So switching to Blender for experienced artists is something I really recommend. We also have a few of those videos on YouTube as well. But honestly, it's not that difficult. The most difficult thing is, there are essentially two parts. Right? You have the whole intellectual part where you need to go into Blender and you need to learn what certain things are. It's a purely like a memorization thing and just retraining your brain to certain ways. Like, okay, the extrude tool is found here. It's hotkey based. It's not marquee menu based, right? It's all that kind of stuff. But then you're also dealing with not the intellectual part, which you can't just memorize it. It's muscle memory. It's the intuition part. And that is tricky because that is just something you just have to practice. There's just no way about that. You just have to practice that kind of stuff. If you don't practice it, it doesn't matter, right? You're not going to get up to speed. But it's going to take maybe like a few weeks, depending on how much you spend, how much time you spend, of course, but maybe a few weeks or a few months until you're up to speed with Maya in terms of how fast you are with it. But is it worth it? I mean, depends. It depends if you some people just hate Blender. Some people love Blender. Some people hate Maya. Some people love it. It really, really just depends what you personally prefer and what your motivations for switching. Blender can't really do a whole lot that Maya can't. So if you're want to just do like props or UV mapping, general scene setup and all that kind of stuff, and you already have Maya set up, Maya is fine. Like if you're switching it to do just the same stuff and you're not switching for money reasons, like of course in Blender is free, so that's definitely a reason to switch. It's fine, but you're just going to be able to do the same job in another software. So yeah, figure out your motivations, but also just try it out. See what works for you. Like some people their brain just works based on hotkeys, and that's great. Some people hate hotkeys like crazy. I'm a little bit in between. I like hotkeys myself. I'm quite hotkey based, at least I have been. But the problem is when I'm not doing 3D every single day, hotkeys kind of suck as well because you memorize them, and if you don't use them for some time, you forget the hotkeys. And then if you use it after a month or two again, well man, then you don't know how to work, right? Well, in something like Maya, which is not very hotkey based, not particularly at least, then it's marquee menu based, then kind of hotkey based stuff, right? But hotkey stuff, but then it's just a lot easier to go back into it afterwards. But yeah, pros and cons. But yeah, definitely check out the course, or like just check out the free YouTube videos we have as well, just covering how to switch from Maya to Blender. Is there a way to replicate Maya shortcut and especially radial modeling menu in Blender? Basically the marquee menu system, right? Nope. I've tried. There isn't really a way to do that, unfortunately. The marquee menu system is really unique in Maya. It's really, really, really good. And you do have pie menus, and whenever I ask on Twitter, like, hey, how can I do this? They're like, but you can just use pie menus. Yeah, cool. It's not the same thing. Not even close to the same thing. There are some like pie menu editors that you can check out. I think there are some on blendermarket.com that you can check out, but they're also paid add-ons. The issue I'm having with it is that it basically needs to be vanilla because I'm doing so many tutorials, or I'm creating tutorials. I can't lock myself into a workflow which relies on hotkeys or tools like marquee menus and such if other people can't follow it, or if it's too different from a standardized version of Blender. So I really can't customize my 3D software a lot, to be honest, not compared to what I used to do. When I was in production, my stuff was customized like crazy. Like I had custom hotkeys for everything, and it was so fast to work, but I don't have that option anymore, unfortunately, for better or worse, I suppose. It means though, like one of the reasons as well was also like, it means that I can, if I'm teaching in classrooms, which I've been doing a fair bit of, then I can just jump between people's computers. The worst thing is if you jump on someone's computer and they've just customized their Maya or ZBrush to death, and you can't work on it because it's so unique. So yeah, pros and cons. One thing I'll try to do when it comes to this character here is I'm going to try to make his eyes really cool. Like really try to make the eyes nice. I love the fawn from Pan's Labyrinth. It's such a cool character. Just experiment a bit with the character now. What do you think about 3D sculpting? I think 3D sculpting is pretty cool. Are you planning on redoing a contest on Flipnormal still last Halloween? We haven't really talked about that. Maybe. It would be really cool. There are a lot of work to do, but yeah, we might. They're really fun to host, and a lot of really cool entries there. But yeah, we just have to see. Yeah, here's a comment with Chris. Yeah, a lot of old Blender tutorials go and say, yeah, download machine tools for this pie menu. It's free, and yeah, it's just annoying when that happens. If there's a barrier of entry when it comes to a tutorial like that, a lot of people are just not going to watch it, or they're going to watch it and then they're going to get annoyed that they need so many tools. Or another one isn't even that you need machine tools for it. Another one is, and that's fine, you know, just download it. It's a bit of an annoying one. The worst one is when they're using something highly specific and it's not compatible with the version of Blender. This happens a lot, right? Where there's a new version of it out and there's new versions all the time out of it, where the script or the add-on or whatever it is just doesn't work. And then as a more advanced user, you can almost figure a way around that. But if you're more of a beginner, man, you can't fiddle with that stuff. If you're a complete beginner to a software, it's really, really frustrating. It's hard to teach. Those are the hardest courses to teach by far for me, because you need to assume that the person knows only exactly what you've taught them, which means if they get stuck big time. If I get stuck in ZBrush, I have like 200 different ways of getting unstuck. But if I were to learn Houdini and I get stuck, or Unreal, man, that's kind of it, right? Then I need somebody to basically come and fix it for me. So if they're using a script, it's really annoying. Even just loading in scripts can be annoying. Loading in add-ons. Everything that creates friction when you're watching a tutorial is just really annoying, to be honest. Have you tried sculpting in 3D Coat? Nope. Looks fine, but haven't used it. Since this is my third stream this week, this guy needs a lot of Red Bull. Just trying to make the sculpt feel a bit more natural. It's really handy to have this, to go in here and just be able to see what's going on. Like just seeing with a render like this. You can see here, like this line here might be a bit too sharp. We don't really see evidence of it here. Then let's just go in and just soften it. The cool thing about Blender though is that it's allowed a lot of people to get into 3D. Like sure, people had ways to get into Maya and such beforehand, but it's just a lot easier if you don't have to use ways to get into it. If you can just download it and it's fine, it's fine. It's just a lot easier. Now I'm going to use the ugliest matte cap ever made by mankind, which is the red wax. The reason I'm using this one is because it's a diagnostic one. Well, it's not what it's made for, right? I'm sure it's made to look pretty, but it doesn't. So I use it purely for that. I use it purely for diagnostic purposes, which means for diagnostics, I mean, you get to see the shape of the character a lot better. Like here, there's a bit of a brushstroke. I'm not sure if I could see this properly without. So I'm just going to set the intensity way down to like 1 or 2, and then we go from here. Wait, is that a render straight from a current ZBrush sculpt? This is a render from Blender where I just imported the decimated version of it. This is from like, I don't know, you can go back in the stream like 20 minutes ago or something, and yeah, just a render. Just trying to make these shapes nice and clean. The difference between a sculpt that's excellent versus a sculpt that's pretty good is often down to just refinement of everything. This is a tricky one to get right, because this is what I had when I've been reviewing things for the mentorship. A lot of students, they might be at a level where it looks fairly decent, but it doesn't look amazing. And I spent like a whole review just going over it and just improving a lot of small little things. By the end of it, it's difficult to see exactly why it's better, but it's better because a lot of small things really, really do add up to it. So it's really important to really have an attentive eye for these things. Don't just brush over things and leave them at that. To really go through and really look at a lot of different areas. Try to really take everything up to a certain level. Here's an interesting one. Hey Henning, I'm really enjoying your tutorials. I'm doing a masterclass currently. I appreciate the inclusion of the iKit, but do you have any resources on how to create your own? And that's a tricky one, because it's what I would do instead of trying to like find a tutorial for it. I would instead look at the iKit itself, look at the different pieces that it comes with, and then try to recreate it yourself. Like try to just reverse engineer it. You're going to learn so much from that. So the way it was made by me. It was made by a really talented artist we hired, Farid Nagi, who like absolutely blew it out of the park. I think he used Houdini for the fibers in it, and then a lot of sculpting on top, and a lot of just manual work to make it work. But a lot of it comes down to a very, very high quality iris. If you don't have a high quality iris, then you don't really have eyes. And a high quality iris in terms of the depth of it, in terms of like a displacement for it. This is what I keep talking about. If you have a nice sculpt, then everything else becomes easier. So I really recommend looking into that. But then from a technical point of view, just look into how it's set up, because it's a bit difficult to explain that when you're dealing with like specifically how it's set up, because it's not logical how it's set up. If you were to, like, you can't really just figure it out by yourself. You kind of have to just look at the material setup for the iKit, because how it uses transmission maps and such is quite interesting. But this is essentially how we did it in VFX as well. Like the iKit for me is legit the same quality as what we had in VFX. And you know, we made this just a few years after we quit VFX, so the stuff I saw in film was not of a better quality than what we had there. Let me actually show that. So maybe the iKit is here somewhere. It might be. It's not on the front page. Yeah, so just as a reminder that we do have a very nice summer sale at the moment. So a lot of products, not all of them, but a lot of products are on sale. Like all of our products, like the Flip Moments exclusives, are 40% off. So here's the iKit, for instance. So here you see all the variety between different eyes. Like what you have is the iris, of course. That it's not just a difference in color. You see the model is actually different. You see this is a lot more broken up than this. So the blue and the green eye, I believe, are the same for sculpting, but the brown eye is quite different. We also have a brighter sclera. The sclera is the white part of the eye, and then we have a darker sclera as well. So you have like a lot of varieties, and you can also mix and match. So you can make the dark sclera go in the blue eye and such. So drag and drop solution, honestly, phenomenal resource. If you want like good, sexy eyes, just like drag and drop them in, and yeah, you'll be in a very good spot. So I'll just send this over right here. Here's a good question as well. Any advice on making ZBrush computer work more ergonomic? Yeah, that's a tricky one, right? Because it's a very good question, but it's also legit a tricky one. The reason it's tricky is because it's not just like a ZBrush interface kind of thing, right? It's more of a holistic question. One of the things, like I'm currently sitting in a Herman Miller chair. They are pricey, but they are not expensive. What I mean by that is that they can cost a fair bit of money, but they save my back. Like I had a lot of back issues from some years ago, and they basically saved my back. You get like refurbed Herman Millers, which is what I have. I think they're around maybe $400 or something. Like it just depends, because a lot of companies now these days have gone out of business, so they're selling their Herman Millers, or they're gone remote, so they're also selling their chairs because people aren't going to office and they have way too many. So a good Herman Miller, this is called an Aeron. This is what I'm using. Spelled like this. Like it's a phenomenal investment. Spend a little bit less on computer parts and spend a little bit more on that. Another thing I recommend, I have this currently, I'm not sure if you can see it here, but I have a sculpting glove. So just get one of these ones, just sculpting glove. I can't remember what it's called. Actually, it might be something on it. Let me see. There's no label on it. It doesn't say. But just sculpting, I think it would be called drawing glove. These are really, 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 really a must-have for me. This is one of the top things I do for do ergonomically, because it really makes sculpting a lot easier. It's not just that it looks cool, because it does not, let me tell you, but it makes your hands slide a lot better over the keyboard. So you can also find tons of these, I'm sure, just on Amazon as well. But there was one way back in there called Smudge Guard, but that's not the one I have now. Let's see if we can do a Google. There are tons on Amazon. Yeah, that's what I'm finding first. Yeah, there have been a lot of ones developed in the last few years, so it doesn't really matter which one you get. I mean, you can even use a sock, right? Just cut a hole into or something. The more important thing is that you have something that separates your hand from the Wacom tablet, because then it otherwise you just have a lot of like sweat, which is it's not even a lot of sweat, just a little bit of sweat over a lot of time. Just makes it to be more friction there. But also just get out of your chair, do some stretches, go to the gym. Like really, I can't stress how important that is. One of the stretches I do is like I do this, so I just stretch my arms. So really, really, really helpful. Because I also had tons of issues with my arms and my back as well. And this is an ugly looking material. It makes everything so enhanced, and you don't really want that. You want to control a little bit more. But one of the reasons why this is terrible is because if you put down a tiniest little dot like this, you can see it in ZBrush, right? You can see this actually now. But if you were to put this into any render engine and you have any kind of subsurface or speck or soft shadows or anything like that, this stuff just disappears. So you want to be sure that it doesn't show you stuff that's barely there, because then you always lose details when you bring stuff from ZBrush into other software. Like in basically no case will you have more detail in the other software than you do in ZBrush. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. All right, that's too much of the ugly material. Let's put in a nice material. Like you can see here between these two materials, a few different materials here now. See between this one and this one, it's a different sculpt. This looks so much softer, but it's a problem that it looks too much softer as well, because it looks nice, but we don't want nice, we want correct. It's always one of the things I keep talking about when teaching is you don't want stuff to look nice, you want to control things. And then once you control things, then you can make it look nice. But you don't just want things to accidentally kind of look nice, because then you are not in charge. You want to really make sure that everything that you do is something that you intended to happen. So my sculpting technique is quite simple, really. It's simple does not mean easy. It's so simple. It's just like I go over the model a lot with a very low intensity brush. This helps me a ton because it just gives you really nice and natural forms. I think I want to move these ones a bit further back, because I think these ones here, yeah, they're a bit too far ahead. So they're obscuring a bit too much of the face. So we can do that. Here's a fun fact about these ones, by the way. Do you know that sideburns are named after a dude called Burnside. Like they're legit named after a person. That's pretty cool. Would have been like if being bald was called a Henning. That would have been pretty sick. I'm currently learning sculpting in Blender. Will that hurt me in the long run? It was not going to hurt you. The sculpting fundamentals you learn in Blender are sculpting fundamentals. If you know how to sculpt a nice face in Blender, you can port that fairly easily to ZBrush. What is going to hurt you is, it's not even hurt you, it's more like if you are really serious about sculpting, at some point you need to basically switch to ZBrush, right? Like there are some people who sculpt in Blender, but don't sculpt in Blender. Sculpt in ZBrush. It's just a better tool for that. So when you do eventually have to go to ZBrush, then you're just a bit further ahead. But it's also it's not a cheap software, right? So it's also like whatever you prefer as well. It's, you know, which tool you use is a lot. It's not just down to like what is your personal preference. It's also like what is legit down. What is your budget, right? Just depends entirely on that. So, but if you can afford ZBrush at the moment, then I do really recommend it. It's a much better sculpting tool than Blender. But even though it's also a weird software, so there is that. But it's a very good software. Not that ZBrush or Blender isn't a weird software, because Blender is a weird software, but it's weird in a different way. ZBrush is like off the rails, kind of weird. Trying to make his hands a bit more interesting, so it's almost like it's in a ref that it's like twigs that have like with bark around it. Yeah, if you do 3D too hard, then your hair just naturally falls off. That's how it works. Do 3D, they said. It'll be fun, they said. Some years later, no more hair. Just playing around with the design a little bit. Can make a top 5 of the most annoying things about ZBrush. Currently, one of the most annoying things about ZBrush is the lack of backward compatibility. So I guess that's number 1. So that's 1 here. Number 2 would be backwards compatibility. Simply means if you were to make a version of ZBrush 2024, I'm in 2022, I can't open your file. You can open my file because it's forwards compatible, but not the other way around. Another one is it's really hard to teach somebody ZBrush because it's so weird. Like, how do you save? Oh, you got a document save, right? No. Oh, no. Okay, because then you screw up your model. What about file save as? Yeah, that saves all of it. What about tool save as? Yeah, that saves all of it, but only one thing here. And you have to drag it out. Like, it's just a weird software, man. So, yeah, the UX is just absurd in ZBrush. Another one is the entire lack of Python support, which doesn't really sound like a biggie, but it is a biggie because it means you can't really do proper scripts for it, which means that you don't really have an add-on or a script community for it. You have just these weird C script things, which, man, that stuff is weird. So yeah, that's pretty annoying. It's really annoying how you don't really have real 3D space, because you can't, like, this is kind of a canvas, right? If you go out of this, you can kind of like do this kind of stuff. You can, like, you're in 2.5D, which is really annoying. So you can also do some wacky stuff like this, right? Shift S and snap it. But this shows you that you have 2.5D. This is also really annoying because it means that there's just tons of issues with this. So if you want to bring in a camera, for instance, it's just annoying to bring in a camera from another software. You can't have multiple viewports or multiple camera angles like here, right? In Blender, what we have a camera here and we have a camera here, two entirely independent of each other. Cannot do that in in ZBrush. So that's very annoying. The fact that you can't import UDIMs is very annoying. So if you want to texture a character in something like Painter, you have UDIMs on it, and then you want to bring these textures into ZBrush, you can't really do that. You can do it one by one, but there isn't really like a clever way of doing that. Or if you do another one is you do a displace map in Painter or in another software really, and you want to enhance it, well, you can't really do that either. It's just really annoying. So yeah, there are tons of like weird things about ZBrush. But it's also phenomenal software. Okay, an example of how the UX is weird. You know how you wanna clear a mask, you control drag outside a model. What if you don't have a mask but Dynamesh is enabled? Now you re-Dynamesh it. So the exact same command is used for Dynameshing and for clearing a mask. So that's really annoying as well. But yeah, I'm not going to turn this into a pure ranty ZBrush session. But yeah, tons of weird little things about ZBrush. Hey guys, I have 15 days for learning UV in Blender. Can I? I mean, yeah, it depends if you depends on a lot of things, I guess. It depends if you already know UV mapping. If you know UV mapping, it shouldn't take a long time to do it because then you kind of know the fundamentals of it. Then you just have to learn software. If you, yeah, it just depends. I would say it's definitely possible to learn UV mapping in 15 days. I recommend not doing UV mapping in Blender. I think you should be using something like Rism. Spelled like this. I have no affiliation, but I really do not like UV mapping in Blender. I think it's underdeveloped to a severe degree. It's just a really bad UV mapping experience. Like it's so weird in Blender because the modeling tools are legit world class. They're very good. Even without add-ons, the modeling tools are very good. And then at the same time, we have the UV tools that are like it feels like it actually feels like when I started with 3ds Max in like 2006 or 7 or wherever it was, where the tools are actually at that level. They're really underdeveloped. So I never UV map in Blender unless I can very much avoid that. Yes, you can have plugins, but then you need plugins or add-ons, right? But they still don't really fix the core functionality of it, like sync UVs and all sorts of weirdness there. I'm saying it can't be done to UV map. Obviously, people can do it, but it's not a developed experience. Yeah, ever since I went to Rism, I really enjoy UVs. Yeah, it's just a different experience. Something like Rism is developed by the same guys who, I guess, the same guy who made the Maya UV tools, and then I guess he sold that, and now he's developing his own thing again. It's just the Maya UV tools as well are also really good. Particularly if you were to have like vanilla Maya compared to vanilla Blender for UVs, it's just not even comparable. But then if you add plugins on top of that, then you have some really good ones. You have one called Polyraven that's beyond crazy. It's just insane how fast you can lay things out and work with just really good, just create really good UVs with the default plus something like Polyraven. But also like with Maya, like the tools used to be crap until they bought the modeling toolkit and then they integrated it. Same with the modeling tools. They were really bad before they bought Nex like about 10 years ago. So, but then they became really good. It doesn't really matter why they're good or not. It just, the only thing that matters is that they are versus not. Like the modeling tools in Maya are legit really developed. But yeah, they used to be absolutely terrible, which is why I used Modo for the longest time, because it was a really fresh tool and it had so many good modeling tools. Yeah, here's an interesting comment. I heard the plan to redo the UV tools from scratch in Blender, even though considering it's taking a this long makes me wonder that devs thought the tools are perfectly fine as they are. This is one of the things when it comes to like, I've seen this a lot in like general open source communities as well, where there is like maybe a plan or something to do, something to improve it, and then a lot of people are acting like it's already happened when it needs like a high level of effort and budget to do that kind of stuff. So just because there's a plan to do something doesn't mean that it might ever happen, right? It was the same with the sculpting tools, like some years ago with Pablo, right? When he was improving them, he improved them so much, and then he left, and they haven't really been improved in any meaningful way since. And this is like, what, 4 years ago now? Something 5 years ago? And the tools are just kind of left where they are. And it's not even like Blender's fault or anything. It's just the nature of open source that, sure, they have a budget for different things, but a lot of it just relies on more the volunteer effort and such. So if you don't have somebody who's really passionate about making new UV tools, and that's difficult. Also, like a lot of the people who might be interested in making these tools, they might just make paid add-ons for them instead, or go work for a company that pays well for their services. Like it's just really difficult to find somebody who can do the job well. Not impossible, of course, but I guess that's one of the things as well. Like if I want the UV tools to get better, I could always learn programming and do it myself. Yeah, but I mean, that's a lot of work. I'm not gonna do that. That's just way too much effort for anyone to expect to put into it. And also there are a lot of people probably like me as well who we don't really care about Blender. This is might sound a bit weird, but like I don't really care about Maya or Painter or something. I just like to do 3D. And if the tool can do the job, then I'll use the tool. If the tool cannot do the job, I will not use the tool. So I'm not going to try to argue with Autodesk to improve their tools. I'm just gonna, like for instance now when you have like this amazing GPU engine right here, or with Eevee as well, just phenomenal stuff. I'm not going to argue with Autodesk how you should improve your tools. I'm just going to use whatever is the best for the job. When Maya became better than Moda for modeling, at least very comparable, and I would say the UV tools are much better there. I didn't argue with the Foundry. I just stopped using the tool because I don't really care about the tool per se. If there's like I'm using Blender now because it's a good tool. I'm using ZBrush now because it's a good tool. The moment there is somebody else out there, then I'll do that, right? I have no loyalty to anything there. I just like doing 3D. I'm not going to accept an inferior experience or to slow down my own work to use a tool that isn't good enough, right, for the job. Have you tried Python ever? Yes, I have. I tried learning Python some years ago, and still, made some small stuff, made some little scripts in Maya, but didn't really take it much further than that. It's really cool knowing Python. It's really beneficial in a production to know Python. But the issue was always like, I was doing characters all day long, and sure, there's a benefit to knowing Python if you're doing characters, but not by like an insane amount, right? Like meaning that if you do know Python, sure, it's handy, but it's also really time consuming to learn. So that's time you can spend on something else. And there isn't that much repetitive stuff when it comes to characters. Not really. Like there are some stuff once in a while, but characters is fundamentally more of a repetitive thing when it comes to sculpting. Or rather, it's not a repetitive thing. It's all down to doing unique things, right? So with this character here, I don't really know how I could have used Python to speed him up, like in any way. First, ZBrush doesn't have Python support, so there's nothing I could have done there, and this is an entire ZBrush project so far, right? But even if I'm doing Maya, which has excellent Python support, if I'm using Maya for retopology or anything like that, I don't really know what I would use it for. Do you prefer Mari or Painter for texturing? Both are really good, and I like both. Mari is a lot more hardcore than Painter, meaning that it has a lot more power, like in a real objective sense, right? It can read more data, but also the workflow is node based, so you can do all sorts of really cool stuff for that. I've been using Mari a lot recently because of Intro to Mari, so a lot of really cool stuff there. But Painter is also like a lot easier to learn. Like it's a lot easier to learn Painter than it is to learn Mari. It's the interface is super nice and simple, but also a corollary is that Mari just has a lot more features. Oh, you want to update your model? Easy. Just go into objects, replace model, change the version of it. You want to do it in Painter? You can, but you know, it's not as easy. What if you painted some stuff in the 3D viewport? What if you painted some of the UV viewport? Well, you're in for a world of pain now, right? Like it's Painter is very basic and very advanced at the same time. So both are really good. For characters, I prefer Mari because it's it has way better projection tools. You know, when you have an image like this, which might have like some wrinkles or something like this, and you can now just take the warp tools and just warp this into place so it fits on top of the character. Painter does not have that. It has the warp project feature, which is a very different thing. So both are phenomenal. One is not better than the other. It really just depends on what you prefer. Do you always sculpt with perspective turned on? Good question. We can talk about that. So, but first, let me just save because I haven't done it yet. Last version was saved like 19 hours ago. So, perspective on or off. This is a tricky one, right? It's not even a tricky one. It's just you just have to know some stuff. Whenever you're rendering this, unless you make an isometric game for whatever reason, you need to be in perspective, right? This here is a perspective camera. Everything is going to be shown through a perspective camera. If you are making something in ortho, you are not looking at the character the way the character is going to be looked. Even this is a quite long lens. This is a 110mm, I think I set it to. So there isn't too much of a difference here. This is more ortho than the other one. But if you were to look at like the head here, right? If we were to just look at this from with perspective, without perspective, you see it looks completely different. Like the horn changes shape in a very drastic way. If we just isolate the head and we look at this and we enable perspective, there's just a huge difference. The head just shrinks and expands, right? It's really important to work with perspective on. I think it's wrong to sculpt with perspective off because you're not seeing this the way it's meant to be seen. Meaning that if you're sculpting with perspective on at this point, the character just looks different. So you really need to sculpt with how it is in real life. I mean, real life obviously has perspective. You cannot have ortho in real life because real life, right? So I think it's really important to sculpt with perspective on. I don't have a single good argument for sculpting with ortho on because it's, at least, you know, if you sculpt because you prefer it, that's not really an argument. Because then it looks wrong when you put it into a render engine or into a 3D software. But if you, basically, right, if you were to show this character here off, it's even worse if you have a character that would be like this, right, like it's a dog or something, and you compare it like this to this, it's just a completely different character. Like the feet kind of look the same, but the head looks way different. So if you were to show off this dog dragon style character like this to like supervisors and you show it in a ZBrush and they were like, cool, this is what it looks like, put it into 3D, start to rig it, and the head is way smaller, like you're just kind of screwed up because you showed the wrong thing, the wrong design got approved. Now if you are aware of this and you keep putting this into Blender or ZBrush, or you show it with perspective, that's one thing, but you need to be aware of the consequences of it. Otherwise you're just actually going to screw things up at some point. Have you ever tried Nomad sculpt for mobile? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Nomad is good. Nomad is the real deal. Curious if they were going to make a desktop version as well at some point. I think they are. It looks really good. Meaning I haven't seen a desktop version. Just that Nomad itself looks really good. I'm really curious on how ZBrush on the iPad will work out. Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. It's just so nice to be able to sculpt with portability. That's what I've had with Nomad, right? You can just sit on a couch and sculpt. Really, really, really pleasant to do that. What I've done before as well, I went to a museum and I brought my iPad, my girlfriend's iPad, and just walked around and sculpted. It's a very different thing because everyone who were there and there was a drawing meetup, they were just drawing and they just sat still on a chair. But I had to walk around. I didn't actually expect that I had to walk around, but I had to because I'm sculpting in 3 dimensions. I need to see what's behind the character. So it's really cool to be able to actually do that though, to be able to bring us to sculpt in a museum where you're seeing like all the cool stuff. Like here in London, we have the VA Museum, which is phenomenal. You have like by Bernini's and Michelangelo's and all that kind of stuff. So you can just generally go in and do like a copy of that. Good night, George. Thanks for stopping by the stream. Just observing the sculpt a little bit more, seeing what's going on here. Really trying to make the hands not feel like gloves, but at the same time trying to not needing to integrate them yet, or to like blend them together yet, because that's just annoying. I need to get into ZBrush for some game assets. I need to build, and the UI is killing me. Yep, it's one of the main things which is a problem with ZBrush. It's one of those that a lot of people don't have an issue with it because they've been using it for such a long time. But every single person I met who's starting with ZBrush, they're like, the hell, what is this? It's just because it's not really logic based. Like meaning that it's based on, I don't know, the preferences of whatever it was made, like whoever made it back in the day, right? But it's not like you've ever had a modern UX designer come in and being like, let's rethink this one here. But yeah, feel free to come with questions no matter what it is. Let's see what you guys have. I tried to learn topology, but not found a single useful resources to learn. Any recommendations? We have a lot of tutorials on retopology on our channel, actually, it's on YouTube. So I recommend you check that out here. Just search for like retopology, flip normals. You should find a lot of different things. Depends what you want to learn, right? Like if it's like what specific thing you're struggling with, or what you're having a hard time with in retopology, what software you're using. But yeah, we should have a lot of good stuff for like on our channel for that. And then just a reminder that we have a very nice summer sale ongoing. So here we have a bunch of really cool courses. This is one of the coolest ones we have. This is Advanced Character Creation with Ben Erd. Ben is a absolute legend at Blizzard. He's been there for 1,000 years, I think, and he's just showing you how to make a character like this. This is one of those rare courses which is for advanced artists and not just for complete beginners. So it actually takes the art really, really far. So shows you how to make a full thing. So for advanced people, this is legit really, really, really good. We also have my masterclass from some time ago now. This is, I really do recommend this one as well. This is one which does cover basically all of it. It shows everything in real time, how to go from start to finish with this, from first sculpting in ZBrush, to final sculpting in ZBrush, to detailing in ZBrush, to retopo in Blender, using vanilla tools, full retopo, UVs in Blender, and painting in Painter, setting up shaders in Blender, setting up the final material in Blender, and then just finally doing the lighting and rendering of it. So this was tons of fun, and yeah, it's like let's see how long it is. It's 20 something hours, almost 21 hours. This is all real time. This is the longest course I've ever made. This took ages to build because I had to build a character 3 times as well. I had to build one for myself because it started as a personal project. Then I had to build one because I built it for Maya and ZBrush, and for Mari. So, and then I had to rebuild it once for ZBrush and Blender and Painter, and then I had to rebuild it during the actual course as well. So not often you can say that I actually rebuilt a character full on 3 times, but that is probably one and only time I'll do that. Well, you sculpt the body and the face, well, and they're separate. How do you manage the line between them? Well, I kind of just do at the moment. This is something I will blend together. So I'm just basically figuring out the design at the moment. It's still in the design phase. So this is something that I will just blend them together, and then I'm going to merge them together in like before I export, and then I'm going to retopologize them and blend them properly together, so there isn't a separation between them. And for the final thing, this is 100% going to be blended together. But the reason it's separate now is simply because it's a lot easier to work with. Like this is like 2.5 mil, and this is like 1 mil, so it would just be hard to get all the details I needed. Wish you would have used Maya for that course, for the masterclass. Yeah, me too. That would have been a fun one. I'm tempted to make another one for the Shrek character I did. Just you doing the same thing just for Maya, maybe making a bit more advanced. Because the Blender one is for more intermediate artists. So I do cover a lot of more things that are a bit more in depth instead of, or rather, I cover a bit more intermediate concepts instead of more advanced concepts. So yeah, I might do another one of those. It was a really fun one to do. So I'm tempted to do the Brexit Shrek one as one as well, but I need to just finish it. Because one of the reasons I haven't finished it is because it needs Xgen for it. Like it needs Groom to finalize it. And until now, I haven't really had a proper way to render that or to preview it. But now, as of last week, I have a proper GPU, so I can actually properly do renders for it. Like I could do like eyebrows and such, but not peach fuzz. It just wasn't really possible for me to properly render that. Did a lot of tests with that back and forth. It was so frustrating to work with. But now I can actually finally start to play around with that. So that's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to do. Yeah, the thing is, like, here we're making a character this many times over, you learn so much, you refine your workflow each and every single time. Though at this point, my character workflow is fairly refined, so, you know, at that point, it's more like just labor. But yeah, you do obviously always learn something new every single time, so that's really cool. It was a good learning experience. I want to learn how e-polls and n-polls work. Everyone just tells me what to do, but nobody tells them why to do it. Yeah, I don't really think you're going to find any resources specifically on that, to be honest. That's a very, very specialized topic. So I don't really think that's something you're going to find a good tutorial on, to be perfectly honest. All right, his legs needs a lot more work. So let's have a look at this. I think it's a good idea to time box things if you get stuck with something. Time boxing simply means that you are spending a certain amount of time on one area, then you're moving on to the next one. So it might be that you're spending 10 minutes or 20 minutes on like the feet, then you're doing 10, 20 minutes on the arms, and you just keep moving around the character. This means you're basically doing like almost a horizontal slice of the whole character. A vertical slice would be you take one area up to like almost a final level, which is obviously good because it means that you get to like test your workflow and all that and see what the final thing looks like in one area, but it can be very daunting. So doing like a horizontal one where you just take everything up to a certain level is very, very useful. So it's not just from like a practical, like or from a management point of view or something. It's also just from a almost like emotional point of view that, man, it's a lot of, it can be difficult to spend like 5 hours just on the face and then you're moving on to another area that's completely rough. So I think it's a really good idea to do real time box it. I actually do this a lot with my Apple Watch. So I set it on timer. There are like some Pomodoro apps for that. So I set it on timer for 20 minutes and then I just sculpt until it vibrates on my hand and then I move on to the next one. And yeah, just keep doing that for a little bit. This is something I often do if it's a boring task I want to do, or if it's something I don't feel motivated to do. Like let's say it's a feat, right? Or answering like 20 emails, which just kind of sucks to do. Then it's more like do that, and then usually after a few 20-minute sessions, I don't have to do it anymore because then I'm kind of in the zone. But in order to get in the zone, it can be a very useful tool for that. Have you full transitioned to Topogun to the point of leaving Maya and its quad draw for Left 4 Dead? I have not. Topogun is great, but for this character here, I'm probably going to do that in Maya, to be honest. I might do it in Topogun, I'm not entirely sure. Maya is fine. Topogun is great, but you know, not a software to deal with. It's a bit annoying to having to, like, you reach a point where you're just like, man, I know enough software now. Like it's a lot. Like it gets to be a lot. Even when I had to learn, like I was using Topogun I made an intro for Topogun like 6 months ago or something for Flip Normals, or for the YouTube channel. Just a free one. You can just check this out on our channel. And man, it takes like 2-3 days for me to just to learn it. Like Topogun doesn't take any time in order to learn, but in order to teach it, it does take a few days. So it's just, man, learning all the software, it's hard. It's legit really hard to keep up to date and learning them and all that. It's difficult. I've got to a point where I can pick things up quite fast when it comes to new software, but even then it's still a lot of work to do. Maya Quadro is equivalent to Blender UVs. I completely disagree. I think Maya Quadro is absolutely fantastic. I think the Quadro tool in Maya is a very, very refined tool that really does a really good job. It's versatile, has tons of other tools built into it, and no, I think Maya's Quadro is really, really, really good. Super easy to work with. If Maya's Quadro was introduced into Blender, there would be cheers in the streets because it's so refined. Like there's nothing even like that in Blender at the moment. No, I think Maya is great for retopo. You just have to know a little bit about GPU caching. Otherwise, it's a little bit gets a little bit crap because it can get quite heavy. But if you use GPU caching, you can do some serious damage with that. Yeah, so you have some tools like RetopoFlow that we already have made a whole course on this, right? We have this on Flip Normals as well, how to make Retopo full character in RetopoFlow. So I used a lot of RetopoFlow. RetopoFlow is great, but you know, it's a paid tool. It's not a cheap tool, and yeah, there are definitely some tools for that. But it's like that's a thing, right? With it, like yes, Maya Blender is free, Maya is paid, but suddenly you need a $70 plugin to do something. It's already built into Maya. You don't need any plugins to retopo in Maya. So if I was doing a lot of retopology, like all day, every day, that was what I was doing, I would have probably been in Topogun. I would probably be faster at that. For certain things, it's absolutely insane. Like the patches tool, brilliant tool. There are just so many nice ones, like how you can, I think it was called a tubes tool. You can just retopologize tubes really effectively. But a lot of times you don't really need to do that. Like if I'm retopologizing this, I don't need this to be done fast. I need this to be done correctly. I need to have a lot of control over it. So I'm generally not sure if what I'm going to be doing with for retopology here. I'm not going to be using Blender, that's for sure. But it's either Topogon or Maya. I mean, $70 versus 1,000 Maya. I don't know. Well, yeah, it's a different thing, right? It's you don't buy Maya. You don't buy Maya. You rent Maya, right? You subscribe to it. You don't do that for the retopology tools. It's just that it's already integrated into it. Like the reason for using Maya is not down to just the retopology tools. Like if you want to build just a modeling pipeline today, stick to Blender, spend some money on add-ons. It's great. It's fine. But if you already have Maya, then, and you might have that through your work, or, you use it for rendering and all that, it's good. How does Topogon fare versus RetopFlow? I would say it has a lot of similar looking tools. RetopFlow is legit really good. It's fantastic. One of the things that's way better about actually both Maya and Topogon and Maya are really good compared to Blender. I don't think you have this in Blender yet. This is the GPU caching. So you can really work with extremely high poly models for retopology, which allows you to, well, you can decimate them, and just performance is just much better. So that is something that is, like, it's not even a Topogon feature or anything, or it's not a RetopFlow feature or anything like that. It's just it's a core thing that Blender is lacking. I think it's lacking. If somebody can confirm, that would be great. But yeah, that's definitely a performance thing. That it's like unquestionably better in Topogon compared to Blender. But it's also like Topogon is also specialized. It's a one-trick pony. It can do one thing. It can do topo, right? So it's not even fair to compare other software to that. If Topogon wasn't absolutely fantastic at topology, then nobody would ever buy it. It's the same thing if Rism wasn't absolutely fantastic at UV mapping. Like, they don't have a business case. If a free tool could do exactly the same as Rism could, like they would not have any business whatsoever. I mean, how could it? How could like, it's the same with ZBrush, right? How could a generalist software like, I mean, even Maya, right? Maya has some sculpting. How could Maya be to the level of the same level of sculpting as ZBrush? It's a specialist tool. Specialist tools are just better at the specialized tasks in nearly every single case. No, Topogon is really good. It's genuinely a really good tool. Like, just check out the video I made on it like some months ago. It should really cover the whole thing. I don't think they've added any features since then. So here on the character now, the character is obviously symmetrical at this point, but I'm just going to break up that afterwards. Once it's working, then I'll probably sculpt a bit more just to break that up. I'll add additional pieces to break up the asymmetry. The cool thing about something like Topogon as well is that it's a one-time purchase. So I bought Topogon 2, like version 3 just came out. I bought Topogon 2, I think it was either 2010 or 2011 or something like that. It's like long time ago. You're basically talking about, like, we're currently in the third decades of the 20th century, right? 21st century. I think this was in the first decade, right? Like, just to put it into perspective. So yeah, Topogon is fantastic. So if you were to spend like $150 to buy something like that, no subscription or anything like that, no silliness, then yeah, fantastic. There was another software that was really, really good. It's still somehow in development, maybe. It's called Silo. Silo was a specialist box modeling tool that was really, really what was getting popular around like 2007 or so, and it was legit really good. It had so many innovative features, and then they just stopped developing it. They're talking about updating it, or there are some updates to it, but it doesn't really seem like it's really in active development at the moment. But Silo was phenomenal as well. You can still get Silo. That was one of those like the same $150 software. Do you think it's essential to get away from ZBrush for more hard surface modeling, familiarize yourself with something like Maya? Depends what kind of hard surface work you're doing, right? If you're doing concept art, then you just go for ZBrush, right? Like, then it doesn't really matter. But if you need good topology for it, like workable topology, you just need something like Maya or Blender or Topogun, right? Whatever you use. You need bespoke topology for it. Meaning if you were to work for, like, if you were to give somebody working on a commercial zero mesh topology for like a bottle, they'd be like, the hell is this? Can use this. Or like a robot, right, for a movie or game that has auto topology like that, it's just not going to work. And sure, you can use the C modeler, but it's just not the same. You don't have the same control as you do with like a proper poly modeling tool. But personal preference. Some people absolutely love using C modeler, but I think if you're doing hard surface, you just need a hard surface, a dedicated hard surface tool. This is the whole thing we're talking about, right? Like, now I'm not even bashing ZBrush for it. It's just use tools for what they're good at. If you want to do hard surface, there's so many good hard surface tools. Probably one of the best hard surface tools like ever made is probably Blender, right? Particularly like vanilla Blender is good for hard surface, but if you are throwing in a lot of like box cutters, add-ons, and all that kind of stuff, it's not even good. It's absolutely world class and arguably some of the best stuff ever made there, because it's so fast and so versatile and has so many unique features. But yeah, so just use whatever tools are good for the job. I personally don't find ZBrush to be a good hard surface tool, but the stuff I would be doing of hard surface would be like modeling specific props or something. I wouldn't be doing so much exploration of shapes. It would be more, here's a ref, match this. Yeah, but there are some people who are absolutely brilliant hard surface and ZBrush as well. Like, just not my thing. I'm sure there's a reason why some of these people prefer it, but I am not one of those guys. Alright, let's see how long we've been going for. We have been going for bang on an hour and a half. I might be going for another half hour or so now. It is around 1,000 degrees in my apartment because the sun has just been peeking over another building here, so it's getting nice and toasty in here. One of the really, really good modeling tools is Modo. Like, Modo is so good for modeling. It's just a shame that it really hasn't got the love it deserves, because since the Foundry acquisition, like years ago now, about a decade ago, then it just has, I don't even sure what's been happening like internally, right? I have no inside knowledge about this. I just know that the entire dev community or the entire dev team kind of left, I think. I'm not entirely sure about that, but the founders sure as hell left. So the founders, they were the ones who developed Lightwave back in the day. They all left the company. They probably got a massive paycheck, and then basically the whole community left as well. The community was just kind of scattered. A lot of them have started using Blender now, but there was a really good Modo community like back 10 years ago. But no more. This is what happens. This could happen to other software as well. Nothing is permanent. you can see my sculpting technique here is I'm really working across the shape. So if the shape goes this way, then I'm working across the volumes like so. I think this is a really good way of doing it. You just get a lot of natural texture with this. This is not just if I'm sculpting a branch, right, like I'm doing now. This is just for anything I'm sculpting. I just get a very natural feel that way. Yeah, Boss is saying here, I mean, Moto is still a thing, I guess. I just checked their website. Yeah, no, it's very much a thing. It just lost a lot of momentum. It was, to put it like this, the momentum behind, the enthusiasm behind Moto back then was similar to what it is like for Blender now, where there was a lot of like evangelism there. People were like really, really hyped about the tool themselves, like itself. You don't really have that for Maya. Nobody's hyped about Maya. Nobody cares about Maya. Like there's just no hype like either way. If there is a new version and there's some cool new stuff, we go like, yeah, that's kind of neat. And if there isn't, we go like, all right, that's kind of lame. But nobody really cares too much about Maya, right? Well, there was real evangelism about Moto back in the day. It was a really, really cool tool, really cool development team. They were very transparent with what was going on. They had their own podcast. Tons of people listened to that. It was a community, and now it's just a software. And I'm sure it's a better software than it used to be, right? But one of the reasons I switched away from Moto, they had a really good render engine back in the day. It was compared to the crap that was at the time in software, like you had Mental Ray in Max and Maya. Mental Ray was, for those who haven't used Mental Ray, good. I'm sure it's taken 5 years away from my life. I'm sure it's fine when it came out, but at the end of the lifespan of Mental Ray, it was really, really, really crap. It was so far behind. It was owned by NVIDIA at the end, and they just kind of killed it, right? And yeah, just really, really, really displeasure to use that. But but Moto was fresh. Moto had a really, really good render engines, but it ended up being so complicated that the engineers, they were like, yeah, this is functional rendering, or like it's very, you can optimize the crap out of it and all that. But I'm not a tech person, right? I have a decent understanding of rendering, but even then I couldn't really find effective ways of working with the engine. Then you have Blender, right? Like, how do you make this render have less noise? You increase the number goes up and you wait longer. How do you do it at Arnold? You increase the number when the render time goes up. Like, sure, you can optimize it, but my God, it was so frustrating to deal with that in Moto. So at some point I just kind of left, went to V-Ray, went to Arnold. I'm still an Arnold guy just because it's good. But again, I don't really care about Arnold. It's just another tool. If another tool comes out that's better than Arnold, I'll use that tool, because again, no loyalty to any software. And that's kind of what's been happening, right, with Cycles. Cycles is really good. Cycles is legit a good engine, so I tend to use Cycles more now, more than I used to. I didn't use Cycles at all, and I just keep using Cycles more and more and more. Yeah, I just like 3D. I don't care. I don't care who makes a tool. I just want to do cool stuff. All right, so we're around 2 mil polys now for this, which is fine. Not really too much. It just means I can get in a little bit more juice here. But that's one of the things I've been thinking a lot about this. Like, the Blender community is, how do we put it? Animated, right? So there can be some enthusiasm in the Blender community and about certain things. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of people in the ZBrush community or in the Moto community or anything like that is Maya ones. They just like 3D. They might do it professionally. They might just like it to do 3D. But I think a lot of people in the Blender community, they like Blender for Blender's sake. And then it becomes like, if somebody's criticizing the tool, it's almost like they're criticizing a part of their identity in a sense. Where for me, if you criticize Maya, we're like, yeah, sure. Like, that's true. The tool has issues, right? XGen, terrible tool. But nobody would really get offended over the tool, because nobody has Maya as a part of their identity. But I think some people do have Blender as a part of their identity. I could be wrong here, but this is something I've been seeing over the last few years. Koranis is saying here, going from mental ray to V-Ray was such a good thing. Yeah, V-Ray is still good and was good. Mental ray was maybe good. I don't know, but it absolutely ended up being good. I used to work as one of the first jobs was doing lighting and rendering in a comp for a very small studio in Bergen, where I'm from in Norway, and we use mental ray for rendering there, and it's just so bad, so slow and so crappy, and yeah, really, really bad. Oh, hey, Morten from Bergen. Nice seeing you again. How are you doing? That was actually the guy I was mentioning, Koranis. Yeah, I'm just boiling in the London heat at the moment. Not a sentence you would hear a lot, but yeah, currently there's a heat wave. It's not even that the heat wave is too intense. It's like 26 degrees outside or something like that in non-freedom units. The issue is not the heat per se. The issue is that I am inside and there is no air conditioning, because Europe has not figured out that air conditioning is a thing yet. So that sucks. So it's just really, really, really warm. Morten's dealing with the same thing in Denmark as well, where he lives. Just no aircon and heat. The advantage of a warm apartment in the summer is that it's a warm apartment during winter. But my god, a warm apartment during summer is crazy. It's like 29 degrees here in Czech. 28.5 degrees in my apartment at the moment. So yeah, that's a lot. That's why I had to cut the stream short a bit yesterday, because of boiling. So there's that. Yeah, the building next to me, this is a development some years ago. The building next to me, they have aircon. But this one, no aircon. I have a big ass fan just blasting on me right now, so there is that. Yeah, apparently that's a thing, right? I guess there are a lot of Americans here in the chat now. Like, you guys have aircon everywhere, don't you? Well, that's basically not really a thing. So it is in South Europe, but not in Northern Europe at all. It's starting to become a real issue, because it's getting warmer, warmer, warmer. Every year it's getting warmer. And that's something that people here don't really take seriously, that heat is actually a real thing. If you get a heat stroke, that's not just a little, oh, you do a little vomit. No, that's neurological damage. You want to be real careful with the heat. Same thing as people here don't understand UV damage as well. Like, you actually get sunburned, and the sunburn is not just, oh, you have a little bit of red on you and it's a little bit itchy, hurts a little bit. No, it's star damage. It's radiation damage. It's really bad. Jesus Christ, it's 8 a.m. in Arizona and it's 38 degrees. That is... yeah, that is insane. Isn't there like a comic about Arizona, like Phoenix, Arizona? Like how it's an abomination to God because you shouldn't build there because it's not a livable place. I think I saw that some years ago. I mean, the southern states in the US is just completely wild. I was in San Diego some years ago now in 2016 over Christmas, and I loved it. The climate was so good. It seems like that climate is really good because it's by the Pacific. It's a bit like Portugal in Europe, where you have the Atlantic Ocean just cooling it down, while if you're in like Spain or something, right, particularly the southern part, it's just the Mediterranean Ocean. There isn't really like anything like large like that cooling it down. Well, Atlantic Ocean, pretty cool. I've been to Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago and the whole city consists of air conditioners. Yep, Hong Kong is nuts. It's such a humid city. I went there like 2018. Yeah, I really enjoyed San Diego. San Diego was great. Climate-wise, San Diego would have probably been one of the places I would have loved to live in, like permanently. So the character is getting there. It's a nice, it's starting to get there, yeah. I spent a bit of time off camera yesterday, before yesterday's stream, just like refining the flow of it a little bit, because I just needed that. I think it's so important just to look at the gesture. There's something with the balance I'm not really loving. I think this is too far forward. I think I have to push this back a little, because I think he might fall if this was a real character. So, but man, balance is difficult. Balance is a really, really difficult thing to get right. Balance is basically like a thing that, it sounds like a simple thing, just make him not fall, but that's a lot easier said than done. Alright, so let's do another test render here. Just Shift and R, let's see what this looks like, and then I'm gonna save this. And then I'm going to do another, we can see here now the difference between these two. So then we just delete this guy, and I'm going to do another merge. Oh, another thing for the question before, what is your top 5 worst features, is that on merging and deleting things is non-undoable. That is really, really, really annoying. Then we just put the tablet down, the pen down, and then we just wait for a little bit. Just had to put my pets into the into the bathroom because it's too warm. This is Echo. He is a very cute little guy. He is like 8 months old now, and he is a very nice little rat. Very sweet little fellow. That's what we can look at while we are decimating. Such a pretty little guy. So nice meeting the stream, Echo. Alright, so it's almost done decimating. Hope you guys enjoyed my little rat. He's a very cute little guy. Cool, let's export this out. Again, secret location. Definitely not on the desktop, because who would do such a thing? And then we just go in here, and we just go in here, and we just throw this over to the other monitor. Serial 1, we can call this skin. And then we delete it. And then we drag it from the not desktop over here. Here we go, okie dokie. And then we give him another one, give him the same material. There we go. So now you can see the update for this one. I like this more. It looks a bit more mature now. Yeah, it's not a bad idea to run like a physics version of it. That's something that, yeah, that's something that I've been thinking about as well at some point. But yeah, he's getting there. And then we're just going to put him over here. And then we're just going to do this basically so that I can rotate him around a little bit more. Yeah, I think it's so important to do test renders. Just test it out. One thing you can do with this is you can go in our material and you can set it in metallic. Metallic can be really useful. It looks like crap because it's metallic, it's not supposed to be, but it can be really useful for diagnostic purposes as well. Do you use certain brushes for sculpting hair? Not really. I use well, obviously I use some brushes for sculpting hair, but nothing special. I use standard, clay billup, and damp standard, to be honest. That's plenty for sculpting here. Sculpting here is tricky, but yeah, that's what I use. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of evaluating a lot of different things. I'm evaluating noise levels, seeing kind of like, not even like from a technical point of view, but more like, is there a lot of noise in the sculpt itself? For instance, you can see the hand here, it's perfectly clean. It's not a good thing. Here it's broken up, and the roughness value is exactly the same. This is also exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to how the sculpt is the first part of texturing. Because again, sharp reflections. Let's look at this a bit easier. Sharp reflections and smooth reflections, or like smooth reflections and like rough reflections here. So if we're to do this, even the same thing, right? It's still a lot more broken up here than it is here, and it's the same material. This just shows you that the specular roughness can very much be broken up by this. Same if you were to add like subsurface to this. If you were to like make this into skin, this is not going to look nice right now, right? But if you were to look at this, you can see that skin would react differently based on the model. So if your ears are thick, it's not going to work particularly well. But if the ears are thin and modeled in a more realistic manner, it's going to look nicer. So tons of different ways of dealing with this. So yeah, good idea to test it out. This is also what I mean when I say that the model always changes, or you always lose a lot of things when you turn it into a skin shader like this, because in this case, stuff just disappears. All the details just disappear into the SSS. So if you look at this before and after, there's just a lot more details missing, particularly if you do metallic, right, which you can see a lot more stuff. You see, look, notice all the brush strokes you have here, all this good stuff. Turn off, a lot of it's missing, and we turn the skin on, particularly if you have a higher value with this, like 0.05, like it was before, which is obviously way too high. You can just see a lot of it disappears. So really important to keep in mind that you need to exaggerate things in ZBrush, because otherwise it's just way too soft. So let's disable this, and let's disable metallic. And there we go. All right, I think my apartment is getting way too warm. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye for now, because I am actually boiling. So if you guys don't have any more questions, maybe I'll do like one more question, then probably back tomorrow, I reckon, for some more fun sculpting times. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Been some really good discussions today, so it's been good fun just taking your questions. We are almost at 2 hours now, so good fun. Take care and heat, honey. Thank you very much. Tack för det. Do you use Maya for your Frankenstein course? I think the Frankenstein course. Actually, let me talk about this for a sec as well. We have a really good course here. Actually, this is really good. This is one Morten made some years ago. This is how to basically make a Dark Souls or a Elden Ring style boss character. So this is really cool. I really recommend this one. But let me find the Frankenstein one. So it's basically a full ZBrush course. The Frankenstein one, I think, it's a really underrated flip normals one in terms of like, also in terms of like sales counts as well. It seems to be just go under the radar, but really it's something like a 12-hour. You can see here now it's the site is getting slower when Americans are waking up, because the site is there's more traffic on now. But this is the Frankenstein one. So this one here is basically like something like a 10-12-hour real-time sculpting course, just focusing one-to-one on this. So yeah, 10 and a half hours. Just start to finish how to make this, really focusing on the core sculpting, focusing on the design, blocking everything out, start to finish, focusing on high frequency. We start from this, right? And then we end up at that. So I had a lot of fun with this one here. I thought it was a really fun one. But yeah, it just went under the radar for a lot of people. So I just wanted to talk about this one real quick as well. But yeah, just heads up that we have a really nice summer sale going on, as indicated by the heat and the sweaty Henning and the docile rat that I just showed you guys. So yeah, nice summer sale. 40% off all Flip Normals exclusive products, up to 70% off creator products, depending on which product it is. Check it out in the links here. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys.